Hi, George.
George, how are you?
Did I get way too many chairs? So it's up. It's up.
I don't know. Okay, so.
I got to admit you. Here you go.
Too high, so high tech. I can't believe it.
And now I'm making you co-host.
Becky.
I'm off. I did.
Yeah.
That's why it stopped. Admit, yeah.
Good job. Look at that. You know, that's it. Job security.
So now
I already. The album's around. I turned it all the way down. Oh, it was off.
Your phone. Is it there?
But your video. That's right.
There's Linda.
Okay, is that better? Someone, speak. Linda, speak on camera. Can you speak to us?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
You're fine.
Huh?
What did you?
Oh, Becky muted herself in Zoom, but
No, I
Muted
muted
the
my
speakers,
computer, but my
but
Zoom was
not-
still
so
overriding.
microphone's still catching. Right. So welcome to hybrid meeting.
Oh, it's Kristen.
She's upstairs.
Should we get her?
Becky, can you do
tell
me
her
a,
to
can you do me a favor? Can you turn off your camera so that
Yeah,
Al
yeah.
becomes the first?
come. Yeah.
I have to have you explain this to me sometime.
Yes, and when we go to the hybrid meetings, we can have lessons.
Right.
I know.
Rita, can you say something?
Well, we
I just wanna
can
make
let
sure.
Lenny sit here. I was thinking.
April,
Lenny-
can you say something?
I have nothing to say. I have. Yes, I'm here. Here I am. Say
Say
something.
something. I want them,
Hi,
don't look
Jim
at the
here.
camera, look at the owl,
hello.
look at Stevie, yeah.
Hello,
That's
is
the
it-
camera, yep.
Yep, is it working?
Louder. Louder.
Hello, hello. Hi.
There you go, perfect. George, go
So
ahead.
speak up.
Testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, 3.
No, you gotta be louder.
No, I gotta adjust it.
Told you like a rock and roll band.
Okay, George, now go ahead.
Testing loudness, 1, 2, 3.
Perfect, get you on the edge there. Okay.
George, want to do it again?
Testing loudness one more time. Testing.
Test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Oh, test 1, 2, 3, 4.
So when you speak, I know it's gonna be hard, but you have to speak at the owl. The owl hears.
That's a hole.
Yeah.
That's the God.
When you turn her on, she hoots.
Wow.
So before we get going, we're just live now anyway.
Yes, recording.
Okay, so I was thinking what we should do is, okay, so welcome all to the Shutesbury Fire Department Chief Search Committee meeting. It's a subcommittee of the Shutesbury Select Board. And I thought we should probably start by just all introducing ourselves so that we all know who we are. So anybody else does, go ahead.
Excuse me, the select board has to call themselves to order first, please. Eric, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's opposed to a select board meeting.
Two, actually.
Okay, I am calling the meeting of the Shutesbury Selectboard order. It's July 7th, 2022. And the agenda is to interview for the Shutesbury.
And I will call the meeting of the Shutesbury Select Board Subcommittee to select the fire chief to meeting. That meeting comes to order as well. Now introductions. I guess we can start with me. I'm Eric Stocker. I'm the chair of the search committee and on the select board.
Melissa Mackey from the select board.
Leonard Zawanka, Shutesbury Fire Department.
Davies, retired from Shutesbury Fire Department. I'm hired.
Jim Walton from the committee.
Elaine Kaleo from the committee. April Stein, representative from the personnel board on the committee. Rita Farrell, chair of the select board.
Kristen Burgess, chief of police and on the committee.
Becky Torres, town administrator.
I thought we should start by maybe having a little quick review of the process that's happened to date. Is that okay, Becky? Can you do that for us?
Sure. So about a month ago, the select board appointed the members of the committee. There's a representative from the finance committee, Jim Walton, a representative from the personnel board, April Stein. George Davies is representing by the fire chief as a representative of the fire department. And Elaine Kaleo is and the select board representative, along with the select board representative, Eric Stocker. So the process that we started with, advertising had gone out prior to the first meeting of the committee. We solicited through the reporter and on the MMA website. We received 6 resumes and 7 inquiries into the position. The committee met twice in the first meeting was to review about half of the resumes we received. The second meeting, they reviewed the second half and moved on to a discussion of what candidates to move forward to the select board for this meeting tonight. Originally, they had determined they would move 2 representatives ahead. And in the end, through their discussions, it was determined they had 1 candidate to move forward to the select board.
The other thing I'd add is that we also sent out a request to the people that you want to explain that?
Sure. After the first set of looking at resumes, it was clear there were some major questions that the committee had regarding people's intent and availability. And the question was, what did they perceive, in some extent, what they perceived to be the salary range? There were 3 candidates from out of state and with large urban center experience. And so this was kind of predicated asking these questions. So a list was put together of 7 questions and sent out email to all of the candidates that hadn't been eliminated in the first, in looking at the first set of resumes. And out of those 5 that received questions, only 2 sets of questions came back in the form of answers. 2 of the participants withdrew instead of answering questions prior to answering questions. Both explained for personal reasons. And so when this committee met the last time, it was determined they only have one candidate to move forward. So instead of having tonight's meeting and the second one, we imagine tonight's meeting will finish the interview.
Great. Any questions on that? Anything from anybody? So we thought we asked people on the committee to come up with a list of questions, which we did more or less. We have certainly enough a lot of questions. I think the best thing to do is probably I will ask them, but they aren't necessarily my questions, but they're just the questions. And some of them are similar. So I'll try to kind of melt them together so that we won't be on the hot seat too long here.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody, we'll start with that. The first question is the obvious one in the room is, why do you want to be fire chief?
I would be kind of bothered if we had a fire chief that lived 3-4 towns away that never made calls.
So you're thinking that's, then you don't, obviously, that
Yeah.
should be said to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what Lenny hasn't said, and for anyone who doesn't know in the audience, being taped and recorded, Lenny is a resident of town. He's currently the ranking officer in the fire department as lieutenant and with 18 years of experience on the fire department.
He's currently the acting chief as well, right? So related question is, what do you think your strengths are? What do you bring to this position that's a strong thing?
I'm a hands-on person. I'm familiar with all the equipment on the trucks. I'm familiar with the type of calls we get. That's my best strength.
And what about challenges? What about weaknesses? What do you see as your weaknesses?
Probably talking to people.
Answering questions.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Hey,
No, that's a good answer. One of the questions, I'll just go to another question about sort of like that is, your resume does not show an experience with administrative component of the job, like grant writing and your sense of that. I mean, do we need help with that, or
yeah, gonna need help with that.
is that something you would see as happening in the department or something from outside the department?
I think within the department, I think.
Nice follow-up to that.
Yes, please do.
So my follow-up would be, do you see that as a, I'm talking to the owl.
Yeah, we have to talk to the owl.
Do you see that as a temporary situation that you would need help, or would you like to, are you thinking of it as having someone who is an administrative person within the department for the foreseeable future?
For the foreseeable future.
So you don't want to take that role on?
See how it goes, I guess. I'm not too sure.
What about,
There's a hand up.
oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to mention that for many years, there was a fire department clerk
Yes.
on staff who did a lot of the paperwork and assisted the chief over time. And there could be consideration of bringing that position back.
That's what I was asking, really.
Yeah.
And whether it be, I think prior to this point, it was someone very involved in the fire department, but it wouldn't, we could explore that as a potential. It could be another firefighter, but it could be a person that works at the fire department.
Can I ask a follow-up question to the first one?
Yes.
Here you are sitting in a room full of people telling us it's hard for you to talk to people. I totally get that. How do you feel within the department in talking to the people? And I'm looking at the owl. Sorry, but talking to your colleagues, to the firefighters.
I think I get along with them good. It's a little different when you work with the same people for a continuous amount of time. It's fairly easy, so.
And sort of a related question. Well, I guess you more or less answered it, but how do you feel about your support from the current members of the department? I guess that's a related question to this question.
I feel pretty well supported. You could ask them.
Well, sure.
I think, when I told them I put an application in, it seemed like everybody was pretty happy about it.
Cool.
So,
So I'll also read this question directly. We know our department's reputation compares favorably with others, both nearby and in the wider region. Do you feel you'll be able to maintain will this sort of level of excellence be maintained, you feel that's not a problem to do?
I'll try to.
Going back to the call question, probably a yes answer, but do you expect to be available to go on calls during standard business hours? Is that a problem with your job, other job, or?
Well, my regular job, sometimes I work out of town, so it's possible.
Right.
To make a call while I'm working out of town.
Right.
So if I'm working in town, I do make on calls.
How much percentage of the time do you figure that in, like, sense of that?
It can vary. Some months we can be working in the shop, and then some months we can be, I could say 50% of the time. If I'm at my regular job, if I'm not working at my regular job, I could have a 50% chance of being out of town.
Could I follow up? Isn't this your regular job being fire chief?
Not really.
But it's a full-time position.
It is a full-time position.
So how can you have another job that takes you out of
I'm not
town?
technically fire chief, I'm officer in charge.
I'm
and
talking about
I'm-
if you were hired.
If I was hired, I would be at the fire station, yes, and I would be able to make calls.
Right. That's a good clarifying question.
So clarification for me, if you were hired as the fire chief, then you would quit your other job or reduce your hours on the other job so that you would be, tell me,
Yeah, I haven't honestly figured that all out. If I'm working at the fire station full-time, I'll be able to make, full-time calls during those working hours. If I'm still working on my regular job and I have to be working out of town,
but that's what I'm asking you, when you say your regular job, if you are the fire chief, which is a full-time job,
Yeah.
will you quit that other job?
yeah, I think so.
Follow up?
Yes, so can I follow up all the way to the beginning? Because it's sort of playing into what I'm kind of hearing now. And I am also of the baptism by fire. And I had a good idea of knowing what being a chief would entail, but until you're actually in it, really, you just really don't know. And I don't think anyone knows. And I don't think 50 years experience can really just prepare anyone for really knowing what this job entails. But what I'm not hearing from you, and I know it's available for you to give because I've seen you work so well on calls with people and with the community, and you're just so empathetic, and you have a great way of bringing things down, and you have a great way of having people come to a place where they're feeling a lot better. You might not recognize that in yourself, but I see that. My concern right now is, and it's not a concern, it's a question, maybe it's a little concern. When you were asked, why you wanted to be the chief, you sort of just relented to the fact that you didn't want anyone else to do it. And as much as I totally get that, 100%, I'm just wondering if you could dig a little deeper, Lenny, because there has to be something else in there other than just, I just don't want anyone else to take this team and run with it. And I completely understand that part of it, but there kind of has to be something more.
No, I think I had no problem anybody else being chief, and I've talked to some people about that, and it's real, you know, I've mentioned other names in the area that I thought would be, good. It's just, I just personally would be bothered if somebody lives 3 towns away and then never makes any calls being chief. So I think there's a difference. with that.
This is a hard question to answer, I think, and I. You understand this, and I think you're trying to get this conversation deeper, is what about being a fire chief? Not just to make sure it's not somebody from far away, further away, but what about you? Because I've sensed from Christian that got a lot of good stuff. And it's hard to talk about it maybe in public, but it's okay to.
Yeah, I think there's some excellent people in the area. And apparently they're not here, obviously, so.
What is it about you? Been on that fire department since you were 4. Many years.
Yeah.
So about you, that comes from you, that makes you want to step into this job. If you have a sense of what this job is. What is it's okay to brag.
Yeah, I think I can do the job, and I think I can do it better than somebody that lives far away.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure, yeah, please.
When Walter has gone on to his vacations or and I believe you primarily the person in charge. What did you enjoy about that being that position? What did you enjoy filling in and being there?
I'm just wondering if I can actually do it or not.
Did you find that you could?
I think so. Now, it seemed a lot, when I first joined, it seemed really complicated, everything. Now there's other things that look difficult and complicated, but it's like the stuff that I first looked at that I thought was impossible is actually fairly straightforward. So I kind of enjoy that. That's for learning and getting better over time.
You were good, that you surprised yourself by being good at it.
Probably operating the pump.
Right. I can't imagine operating something.
What's your sense of, this department, like many departments that are small departments, is sort of traditional, routinely understaffed, or, we're always having trouble getting it. What's your sense of that, and whether or not that's something that could be solved at all, or what would give any ideas about how to deal with that, or if we can deal with that, or would you need help dealing with that, or what's your sense of that?
Yeah, it's definitely a problem only having a couple of people in town, any given minute of the day. We don't have many calls, but they do come in at the sometimes the hardest time. And it sucks when there's only like 2 people to respond to a call, or 1 person just to respond to a call. I think that's pretty serious. It would be nice if more people were on, more qualified people. And it takes a while to train somebody. And so sometimes somebody walks right in and wants to be very helpful, and then say like 3-4 months go by and then they leave. It takes like 2 years for somebody to kind of go through the training and show up to calls, just watching what's happening before you can actually really start trusting them to do things. And it's a long process to train somebody so they can actually be qualified to do a lot of the stuff we do. So it's a tough one, having very limited people in the department. So I don't know the real answer to that. I think almost every department has the same problems.
Elaine?
Do you have any ideas of how you would go about trying to boost your recruits, especially women? recruits?
I mean, we haven't done the Celebrate Shutesbury for a couple of years, but you know, we've always tried to tell everybody that we're looking for people. We try telling people that for the pancake breakfast. And don't really know any other way to do it.
Celebrate Shutesbury is coming back.
Yeah.
Isn't there a mandatory donut eating contest?
There is chief
The
against
chief
chief.
of.
I am ready.
So, there are times that, obviously, when you're doing trainings on Thursday nights, you're busy, you're doing trainings, but is it possible to have open house type of training where people could just come who are curious, who have never really thought about it, but maybe would be interested enough to come on a Thursday night and just see what you do and make that an open invitation to the community to see if you could find some people.
I think it's possible. We do have people that show up and just hang out for our training, and kind of before they get all their paperwork set and the insurance set, they're really not allowed to do anything, but they just kind of watch us what we do. So in a way, that already happens.
So do you ever recruit from there? Do you get anybody?
Oh, occasionally.
Took some open houses over the years. There's also been one or two females on the department my entire time, so.
Yeah.
They definitely show up and sometimes pan out, and everybody's welcome.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to make them stick and show up, and after a while, they see what's involved and they get away.
Yeah.
You do have an age limit though, don't you?
I'll double check.
It's 18 on the downside.
Yeah, you gotta have a driver's license, high school diploma, 18, and I think it's maxed out at 60.
I think it's 65, and
65?
but you can get away with it.
Okay, I thought that was for existing firefighters,
Right,
not for.
You're right.
I didn't think that somebody 65 could show up.
I've done enough that deal.
So I have a question about, Lenny, how many firefighters are there now?
On a blank now, sorry. We have we got one guy going back to college, so that we're down one. One just retired, minus Walter, the chief, so we're going. Can't count the sign off.
We had 10 minus Walter minus Dave.
So I'm going,
Probably two guys going back to college, 6.
yeah, less than 6.
And what do you think is the ideal number?
It would be nice to have, 12, it would still not seem enough, honestly. And you kind of look at, scenes on the news, and there's a whole crew of firefighters around the fire truck putting the fire out. Sometimes on our side of things, it's only 2 people going. Or 1 person per 1 truck. So,
How does your current set of firefighters time in town, because they all have other jobs, how does their current time availability match up with the general, I know fires happen all the time, but the general timing of when fires are happening around town? Do you have a sense of that?
I think it's so random, it's so hard to tell. Honestly, most of the guys leave town 7 to 6. There's only just a couple people in town. So, and then you don't get many calls, but it's pretty random. They can be 8 in the morning, they can be 12 in the afternoon, they could be 12 at night. So it's just pretty random when they come in.
So there's no real pattern to.
Not really, because we can go for a week and a half without a call, and then we can have 4 calls the next day. I mean, it's so random, you can't really tell by just,
Are they mostly fire or medical?
mostly medical.
And are they mostly, and I know you just kind of answered this question, but do they see mostly during the week, or are they more weekend type? Or is it just too random?
It's too random to tell. Like I said, we can go for a week without a call, and then we can have, 3 calls the next day or 4 calls the next day. It can be so random. that-
Is there anybody on the fire department, including yourself, who has any kind of medical training or how do you?
Yes, we all are first responder trained, so we do train as first responder level until the paramedics show up from either Amherst. Most of the time Amherst ambulance shows up.
There are no paramedics, so.
No, there's no paramedics, so.
And my understanding is if there were, that they can't use that certificate. You can only, the department's only certified as
Yes,
first responder.
yes, the department's only certified for first responder, so we've had former paramedics and present paramedics on, but they're only allowed to treat as a first responder level.
Can you explain that to me, what that means? The difference,
So,
Like what a first responder.
what a first responder can do and what a paramedic?
so like a paramedic can administer drugs, we're not allowed to administer drugs. We typically get information, we're trying how to stop bleeding, we can do CPR, we can hook up the defib. A few other things, but it's, we pretty much just keep the breathing and stop the bleeding until paramedics arrive.
For Narcan.
Yes, yeah, we can do epinephrine.
So you're using the term paramedic, it's like it's first responder, EMT basic, EMT intermediate, paramedic is the
Yeah,
highest
there's
one, paramedic.
Oh.
Paramedic is technically almost an MD.
Okay.
So we
So-
really we should be saying other EMTs on the department.
Yeah,
And there have been a couple actual paramedics past or present over time. Lenny,
Yeah.
whatever he says about what's there now. so
Yeah.
Usually the most logical thing is you might have some EMTs. It would be really rare to have an actual paramedic.
So an EMT, but can you be an EMT in our department? Can you do?
no, you're not, if you're an EMT, like at an ambulance company, and at an ambulance service, you can administer drugs with that ambulance, but you're not allowed to administer drugs.
Okay.
At
So
our
still
level.
only up to.
Okay.
So they're only allowed to
Up to-
do first responder level.
Got it. Okay.
Medical.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe a related question is, what's your view, or how do you see your working with police department, since you're both going to be responding to similar calls often?
Yeah, probably wouldn't change much the way we already normally do. It's nice seeing the police there. It's like, especially when it's only like one person on a truck, it's, 2 people, 2 heads are always better than one. So, I don't see that changing. As for, police do show up to fire calls. They have the time. So,
Following up
No,
to that,
please do.
if
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay.
No, it's perfect. You're a good candidate.
Yeah, the police are typically the first ones there, 7 to 11 if we're here. But what I want to chat about in that question is, I started working with Walter, doing mutual, trainings together. And I really enjoyed that. And I know the officers really enjoyed that. Would you see that? Because I had planned on enhancing that even more. Would you want to be doing some more trainings together? How do you foresee that working in the department?
definitely, I thought that was great when we did that. This was in a way kind of a first for us as for training with police, so I thought that everybody thought that was great.
I
So
took a
definitely
lot
like
of-
to do it again.
Yeah, took a lot of pride in that. I was very pleased with
Yeah.
it, and I know the officers really look forward to it. And so following up to the follow-up, sometimes when we're working together, as you know, there are some very strong personalities in both departments. And of course, I would be handling the strong personalities on my side. how would you handle the strong personalities on your side when we do dual training?
My best. I mean, yeah, if I have to tell people to be quiet, and shut up, I'll say that. So, yeah, it does take all kinds to make things happen. So,
George,
So you've correctly pointed out multiple times already that probably the biggest challenge is one person on a call, two people on a call. Can you say something, but tell people a little bit about the mutual aid system and how it works in both directions, whether there are other town, who else comes to help us, who we go to help, and how that works overall.
okay, so if it's most of our calls are say medical calls. So if somebody calls 911 saying I have, difficulty breathing, we get toned out, and the Amherst ambulance will all typically automatically get toned out too. Say if it's a vehicle car crash, ambulance will get toned out, and Shutesbury Fire will get toned out. Now,
Will the police get also?
yes, they should.
We did.
And if it's after 11, the state police will show up, but usually it takes them a while for them to show up. At any time, if there's only one, if it's an entrapment, now shelter and control is supposed to automatically start calling another town for use of the jobs. So now two departments automatically get called for one car crash if it's a entrapment type call. And that's pretty much how it works. Now, if it's a structure fire, now automatically two towns can get automatically toned. If we get to the station and there's only one or two people there, we can call for a second or third alarm. And we have preset run cards that say, hey, we want Wendell to show up with a tanker and Pelham to show up with a tanker and New Salem with an engine and Lever with an engine. So we have preset up cards for which alarm we want to call for who shows up. And they have the same problem as we do. So there may be only two people on the truck.
so the odds are good that if there was a fire during the day, I'm not advocating a small department, but I mean, if it does happen, as it does happen now, only two people, probably we can get more than that showing up.
Yes, yeah, eventually you would have other towns show up.
Right.
Yes. And it goes, we do mutual aid to other towns when the same thing happens that I was just describing. We had we went to Orange about a month ago now for the mill fire when I don't know how many towns was there, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was 15 plus towns with lots of fire trucks there. So it goes both ways for mutual aid. That's used pretty often.
I was just gonna ask you, how often do you go out of town on mutual aid, do you think, in a week?
It's like 10%.
I would say less than 10%, but I would really have to look through the calls, but I'm guessing maybe once a month, maybe 2 times a month, we might do a mutual aid call to another town.
And that's only for fire or
It could be for fire or motorcycle, vehicle crash.
vehicle crash, but it wouldn't be a medical?
It wouldn't be for medical because an ambulance would already be there before. If the ambulance is already leaving the Amherst station, we would have to get to the Shutesbury station and then drive to the other town. The ambulance is going to be there before we do.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I'm curious, if situation, if there's 15, what is the role of fire, yes, what is the role of the chief during that? Because you've got a lot of chiefs and no cooks.
yeah, there's lots of stuff going on, and one chief's going to call himself in command and tell other trucks and other towns what to do.
Is that
So
typically the
it's typically the town that the incident is happening in. It can now the chief, when it looks at what's happening, they can call other resources in, which other help in to help them manage the scene. And that usually happens for like a bigger scene because it is truly difficult to manage 15 plus towns together, so.
How do you see yourself, if you've had to call it mutually, being that chief of how many other, being that person?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Probably radio communication.
This, that.
I'll be familiar with the town. I know where the water sources are.
That's big in this town for sure, since it's.
Yes, there's no pressurized hydrant. So,
Do you have any sense of how many fires we have in town? Like over the last 5 years, how many fires do you think we've been to in Shutesbury?
and Shutesbury, not too many. Yeah, I honestly, I can't answer that off the top of my head.
Is there a law that's kept? of the
Yes,
fires?
we file a report on every fall we do, and so it takes a while to go through them all. By the time we go through the end of the year, it's a big stack.
There was, at one point, we were getting monthly reports from the fire chief as to their
What the
logs.
call- what
What
types
call
of
was.
calls? But yeah,
I have a slight follow-up question. I know you can't say how many fires, when was the last one that you went to?
You're in town? It's been a while. I don't remember.
kind of hard.
Chimney fire down on Leverett? Was that the last one?
Could have been. Yeah, they all kind of blend into each other.
So how long
I
ago?
swear we've done something since then, but
What would that be?
2 what? 2 years ago, I think.
no.
Have you done something since sooner than that?
Yeah, we've done brush fires.
The construction.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I know we've done a couple chimney fires so far, last winter. I know that. On mutual aid for, a couple structure fires.
I imagine you were part of the mutual aid on Brushy Mountain when that happened.
Yes, we went to that, yeah.
A follow-up to, I can't remember who mentioned it, being the chief on scene. So can I ask a hard question?
Yeah.
So you admittingly have, one of your weaknesses, I wouldn't say it's a terrible weakness because I've seen you in action, having trouble, talking to people, speaking to people. Do you see yourself as the chief that is going to, here comes the hard question, the chief that is going to be the one saying, you go do this, you go do this, you go do this? Or do you see yourself as the person saying, you go tell them what to do?
So I'll be telling people what to do.
Even with the strong personality.
Yeah.
So here's a follow-up to that. Speaking of having to be the one in charge, the fire chief has been our incident commander for any of our emergency management situations. And that means really telling people what to do. So do you have any gut feeling about that? Any experience with that?
I don't
How
have
is
any,
this going to happen?
I don't really have any experience on that side of the house for emergency management. And like I said, that's one thing I'm gonna need help on. And I'll be happy to work on it over time. But it's something I won't be able to walk into and start doing.
When was our last emergency management incident? Was it ice storm? Or is this, because the snow in October didn't really affect Shutesbury as much as
Yeah.
was it Valley? Yeah, because it must have been the ice.
Probably the ice storm.
It's 10 years.
Probably more.
Well, it was 2009.
2009,
My nephew was
Not
3.
close.
He's 15.
2008, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hey,
December
2008.
2008.
But at our age, it's 10 years.
Linda's trying to.
Oh, Linda, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to remind you that to speak to the screen
Speak
so
to
I
the-
can be sure that I hear everything. Thank you.
Sort of a follow-up to the follow-up.
Love it.
to the follow-up is, Chief Walter Tibbetts has been, he's a very big person in our fire department. And it's going to be he has created a model for how to be a fire chief. How do you see yourself following up? He's got big shoes to fill. Not that you don't have big feet. But how?
I'm gonna honestly try to be the best, Walter, basically.
And what's that?
I'm gonna try to do the best of my ability to what you would do in any circumstance.
So what do you bring? That's not Walter, because you're not Walter.
I know.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been trained, essentially been trained by Walter since 2005, and yeah, that's basically it.
So integrating that into you.
Yeah, I have a follow-up to that. With what Walter has bestowed on as during all of those years, is there 4 things that you might expand on? A lot, but is there something you might expand on as chief? Bring your own pizzazz to it.
I'm not sure. I think I'll just try to do the best what Walter would do, honestly. It's trying to keep everything together, I think, would be my #1 priority, and go from there. So I think I can't really imagine doing anything different as for the trainings we do. It is hard to keep current with everything, but it's also hard to keep everybody to show up to training as well. So this is not a full-time job for people. This is, people, the other firefighters have actual jobs, and they're taking time out of their day to come do training. So I can't exactly ask them to do 8 hours of training after an 8-hour day. So.
One question I have about training is, do you see any need for, or should there be any sort of diversity training that isn't happening now? And I guess it asked that to the police chief too, since she's here, and I know she's led some training sessions. I'm thinking of, like, just as time goes on, the town is becoming more diverse population-wise, in terms of people of color, and whether women should be in the department. We've talked about that kind of, all those kinds of things. Do you see any need for that, or desire for it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to. It's we try to treat everybody as best we can. I think that's what we've always tried to do.
You want to answer, if you have anything to say about that?
I think that it's ever evolving. I think training should happen regularly. I'm a bias diversity instructor through the police training commission. I'd be happy to assist with any bias diversity training for the fire department and sort of have it fold over into that. We go through it, trainings in that area yearly, if not more. And I think that having it be on the forefront, I've got all the information, so I'd be happy to lend that in.
Good, thank you.
Lenny, Walter has spent a lot of time working with the Chiefs organization in the Western Mass and gotten involved in different projects like spearheading, working in managing video purchases through Franklin County. But is that an interest of yours to take on things regionally, or at this point that would be something you would be learning about
Yes,
by going to meetings?
Yeah, I'll definitely be on the Fire Chiefs Association. I'm not too knowledgeable about the workings of radios, so I don't know how much valuable I would be to the radio commission. So.
And I think at this point, hopefully the new purchase will last a while.
Hopefully, yeah.
Jim,
Yeah, just not a follow-up, what very different angle. So equipment and whatever gets worn out over time. And there's a need for new things. Needing to make the case to the town for these new requirements. How would you go about that process?
I'll make a case. why
Jim,
we
talking
need-
to this second.
I would make a case why we would need to replace like a pump or some type of apparatus, because it would be really old. I could, that case.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is I'm guessing you probably haven't been involved with that process in the past, right? That's probably been mostly the chief.
Yeah, it's been mostly the chief. You know, we come up with what we kind of want, and we go over it for a while to make sure that's kind of what we want. And, you know, I know it's, some of the stuff's a pretty big ticket item, so you really want to make a double check. Sure, that's what we want, you know, we got all the energy of getting it, basically.
So when you say double check, what's that, what does that look like?
Well, if we're gonna go looking at a fire truck, there's lots of different types of fire trucks, you know, and, most fire trucks are kind of sold to the cities, and those city fire trucks don't really carry any water because they don't have fire hydrants, so pressurized hydrants, you know, every so many 100 feet, and that won't work in a town like this. So just that, right? Just buying a fire truck from like the show special because we got a good deal on it, but then find out that it doesn't have any water, carry any water. That wouldn't make much sense.
You have a process for going through that. But it would also involve talking with the town. There's a committee in town, capital planning committee. What are your thoughts? Sitting down with them and going, making your case for whatever the needs are.
Yeah, I'll have to go over with the whole fire department and come up with our reasonings and come up with what we want, and I'll have to.
I guess one of the reasons we're asking a number of these questions is some of these, you'll be going through some of the stuff for the first time, whether it's capital or whether it's the budget. Grants. And there are resources in town, that they may not be in the fire department, but they may be in town. I just bring it up because they're there and having that comfort to reach out.
Yeah.
You know, if something there's a need, I'm not really sure what the steps are. There are people that can work with you to get you those steps, what it takes to make some of these things happen. So it's more.
Last question I have was the present chief Walter's always done a lot with maintaining the equipment, helping, doing mechanical work on the equipment and so forth, being in charge of the mechanical work happening if he can't do it or whatever. What's your sense of how you would approach that, or what would you be able to do that, or would you think you'd want to do that, or whatever?
Yeah, that would be up my alley. I worked in a garage for a year and a half when I went to tech school, and so I worked full time every other week when I was in high school, basically. And I repair machine tools on a daily basis, so I work on mechanical stuff.
You're a gearhead.
Yes.
Okay, I get it. Cool.
Do you currently do any work on the machines for the fire department?
It's mostly Walter basically does everything.
Any other questions from folks? Rita?
Yeah, I just have a question about if you got the job, if you were appointed fire chief, what's your vision for the first 90 days? Like what would you see yourself doing as the new fire chief?
Asking Walter a lot of questions, most likely.
What kinds of questions?
Oh, mostly code and paperwork related stuff. Different codes and stuff. I'm a hands-on person, so I've kind of gone through the motions of all the fire calls, as for the office side of things. I haven't really been that familiar with it. So.
To sort of talk to about a call and how it went for you. And what you felt you didn't do right, what you thought you did well. Would that be a kind of conversation you have with them?
Yeah, that could be, yeah. It's like, what would you do when you saw this? What would you do?
Or this is what I did, what,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes,
and
so,
start
yeah, I'll be asking questions on that.
kind of find your own instinct at some point.
How do you see the structure of the department if you were to get the job, meaning chain of command? And also, how do you see yourself as a, if need be, disciplinarian, and how would you handle that?
It's a tough call, see what exactly happened first, you know. I feel that almost pretty much everybody on the department is on the department for good reasons, you know, and kind of don't want to go over the top on certain things, but if it is outrageous, I'll have to do something, obviously.
And the structure, chain of command, how do you foresee that being laid out if you were to get the job?
Well, I would obviously be chief, and there's a few firefighters that's been on for a long time. I was hoping to possibly make them officers. So.
Would there be another lieutenant taking your lieutenant spot, or would there be multiple lieutenants, or?
I think most likely there'll be a lieutenant taking my slot.
Anybody else?
Are you ready to take on the role of incident commander, or would you prefer to have maybe the police chief be the incident commander for a certain amount of time while you came up to speed? Because you said you don't have any emergency management training.
Yeah, so depends what type of call that would be. If it was just a structure fire.
No, I'm talking about incident commander for emergency management, like the ice storm.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably would, if somebody's more qualified than me, I'd be happy to let them do it. So,
I mean, the mutual aid system is built for that too, like the state. And mobile units, that if you're over your head, you just got call the control and you say, I need a incident management team. Put together and
Right, we would want to keep it probably in town, you know, having somebody in town be, and if not me, somebody, you know, qualified, but, you know,
And there's all the IC incident command trainings. And where do you stand on those right now? I think you mentioned you don't have the 400 yet, but you.
yeah, I took one of them quite a long time ago, but I think it was the 200. So yes, I'm not familiar with the 400.
That would be something on your list of.
I'll be on the list.
4
of
and
things.
7,
Yeah.
yep.
4 and 7,
yeah.
400.
There's something that you left out on your resume, and I kind of wanted you to speak to that thing. Is that all right?
Okay.
So you were in the military.
Yep.
So I think they'd love to hear about your service and how you served and where you served in your years of service. And thank you.
Yep. I was in the Army National Guard from 99 to 2005, and I was the 63 Bravo light wheel vehicle mechanic, and I was attached to the 187 engineers out of Florence. So I did that for 6 years, and then I did 2 years of inactive. So in 07, I got a letter saying I was completely out.
So when you were active, did you deploy?
No, active in the Guard would be 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. When I was in. Inactive would have been, my name would have been on a list for 2 years. That's all it was.
And is there experience from that service that you you
Yeah.
might bring forward into chief or into the fire?
Yeah, I did PLDC, primary leadership development course. Or I would never made a sergeant, but that was what you'd have to take to become a new five. So that was a 2-week course in southern New Jersey. It's based
Or Dick's.
was it Dix? I think it was Dix, yeah. So that's why I did PLDC. So yeah, so that would, I think that's definitely helped me.
Anybody else? Do you have any questions for us? I guess that's a good question to ask, right?
Not really.
Topic that, we talked about with the fire chief review committee, that potentially, you could also in the structure bring on a deputy chief.
Yeah.
And have you ever considered that possibility? I know you have only been thinking about being a cheaper.
Yeah, I haven't, it's crossed my mind. I'm kind of going back and forth on everything and have to talk to people and go from there.
And would you envision that as another paid position?
Not too sure. I have to talk to people.
Other questions? No questions, I'm assuming, no questions? So in terms of process, the select board, we'll have to get together and review all this. The select board will have to make a decision. And also you have to do, you're in a process of background check. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, but that's the law. We do it. References. So we're not gonna make any decisions tonight, I guess, is the bottom line of all this, is that, you know, we can't, other than that, thank you for coming in, and
Yes, thank you.
we really wish
Thank
you
you.
success and whatever happens with all this, yes or no, or whatever, but it's, you know, great to have you talk to us, and good luck in the future, whatever happens.
Yeah.
See you out there.
All right. Hey, take care.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Thank you.
Great voice for the owl.
Yeah, right. The yellow lights.
Yeah, he has a good voice for the owl.
Was this cool?
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't think.
No one hopped in.
But no one, so we would see them up there. if they're-
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Can we just adjourn? We're not having any.
I think we can just adjourn. I don't think there's anything to really decide. I mean,
Do I hear a motion to adjourn the select board?
second.
You're not on the select board. All the.
No. Maybe so, Neil, Maybe so, Neil,
Stalker,
I make a motion that we adjourn the subcommittee.
Yeah, now I get to be in it.
second. I have a second discussion.
Discussion.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, we will have to meet one more time in executive session to
Yes.
approve the minutes.
Couldn't do that.
No.
No.
The motion's gonna be posted as that.
Session and we have-
I did, April. Hello,
Well, tonight-
Georgia side.
Sorry, guys.
All right.
Oh, hi.
Stalker,
With my finger.
okay, you can stop it. We're done.